My dear friends, our topic today is misperceptions about trust. Now, this is a very interesting subject because each one of us has a perception of the meaning of the word trust. But today, let us take a deep dive and explore some unique dimensions of trust and identify how trust plays a critical role in our lives far more than we realize. Now, let us start by looking at some of the common definitions of trust from the published literature. As you know, I always look at what is being said out there, and then we narrow down to the part that we really want to dig into. So, the first definition I could find says trust is the firm belief or assured reliance. So, firm belief or assured reliance on the character, ability, strength, reliability, or truth of someone or something. For example, if we believe that somebody is good, sincere, honest, these are dimensions of trust. The other is that trust is a feeling that somebody or something can be relied upon or will turn out to be good. The third one is that trust is a feeling of being sure about something, even though it cannot be proved. So these are the three pertinent definitions I could find in the literature. Now, why is trust important? Its presence cements relationships by allowing people to work together, to feel safe, and belong to a group. Trust in a leader allows organizations and communities to flourish, while the absence of trust can cause fragmentation, conflict, and even wars. So, trust is the backbone of healthy, happy relationships, whether they're romantic or not. And trust is hard to define, but we do know when it is lost. So you can see how all these definitions I've just shared tend to beat around the bush a little bit. Why is that? It is because trust as a concept is often not recognized as a holistic force or power. It's not recognized as a holistic force or power. Let us dig into some unique aspects of trust, and let's try to understand what makes it a holistic force. Many of us have trusted in people, and our trusts have often been betrayed. So we perceive, or so we perceive the case to be, we think we've been betrayed. I've heard many people say, well, I don't trust anyone anymore. Now, this is a very drastic sentiment to express, obviously coming from roots of deep hurt. But, my dear friends, this is only a small part of the true concept of trust. What if I were to tell you that despite what you say about trust, each one of us lives with an absolute trust in life itself? Now, what do I mean by that? Do you all keep an agenda, a diary, where you write down your schedules, where you're going to go, who you're going to meet, when you're going to meet, and you keep an agenda for a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, where you're going to travel to? Why do you do that? We all know that life is 100% uncertain, and a moment from now, we may or may not be alive. Yet, why do we fill our diaries with bookings and schedules without even considering the possibility that it may not happen? It is because each one of us trusts explicitly in life. We all trust that life will happen. We trust that there will be a tomorrow, even though none of us knows that it is assured. So trust is a core foundation of life in this world. And when you say you can never trust anyone or anything, that is not necessarily true, because true trust is ingrained in our being, in our DNA. It's there. It tells us there will be life an hour from now, there will be life a year from now. That's ingrained in us. So we all trust in life. So let us start thinking that way. If we have no trust, we cannot live. Trust is as important as the basics of living, like water and air, for example. Without trust in life, we would be totally lost and lonely. And yet none of us is lost to that level, because even the most bitterly hurt amongst us still trusts that tomorrow will come. We never doubt that, even though common sense suggests that we should. So, my dear friends, let's embrace the fact that we are beings of trust, that our life's foundation is based on trust. Trust that life will happen. And this, my dear friends, is the spiritual dimension of trust. Since we trust in life, we trust in the life force that flows through every element of our being. We never doubt that life force flows through us. We never doubt that we are alive because we all accept that it is there and we value the life force deeply and we fight for life to preserve it in every way we can until our last moment and our last breath. We fight to keep our life. So our trust in life force is a very deep spiritual principle of life. Sure, we can all debate about what the life force is. Is it God? Is it nature? Is it just energy? Is it a complex series of dynamic statistical occurrences? It really doesn't matter one bit. Those are just topics for intellectual debate by humans, and we all love to debate. So some of us get so philosophical. Give you an example. There was this really successful researcher, professor in India, and he visits a village and he sees on the roof of a hut, he sees cow dung splattered around. And he stops and asks himself, how did the cow get up there? And he looks around and he doesn't see a wall, he doesn't see a ramp, he doesn't see anything. And he said, how did the cow get up there and spread its dung, splatter its dung? And as he's scratching his head, this little kid is sitting watching the professor and saying, what are you doing? And the professor said, I'm trying to figure out how the cow got up there. And the kid started laughing and he said, you're such a silly man. My mother and aunt picked up the cow dung and placed it on the roof to dry. So often the answer to complex questions is very simple. And what I've shared with you about trust is exactly what that little kid would have said. It's so very simple. We don't need to be philosophical about it. And now, while we're talking about trust, let us look at the word faith. What is the difference between faith and trust? Trust can be expressed in the scene before our eyes, in the present, or in the past, or sometimes trust can even be expressed in the future. But faith, however, resides in the unseen, and yet it is as real and important as trust. You can see trust, you can see what you can trust. Faith is unseen, but it's just as important as trust. And faith has no horizons. It projects itself way out in the future in so many marvelous ways. And once again, we can all debate faith like we debate life force. But deep down, each one of us has faith, no matter what our beliefs are. So faith and trust are the foundations of hope. And even those who claim to have no faith, they use the word hope in their vocabulary all the time when they wish for a given outcome. Why? Because no matter what your beliefs, as a human being, you have faith just like you have trust. They are a built-in part of us. So let us consider hope. Hope in itself is an essential aspect of living. Hope has the most amazing powers, for it fuels and gives life to the human spirit. I remember in the late 90s or probably early 2000s watching a Robin Williams movie, Jacob the Liar, Jakob, where he says he has a radio and he's listening to the news of the Allied forces. He's in a Jewish enclave. They are trying to hide from the Nazis and save themselves. And this community of Jewish people are very scared. There are no supplies. There's scarcity of food, a lot of suffering, cold, winter. But every day he gives them hope by saying the Allied forces are advancing. They are coming through for us. And like this, he keeps telling them everyday news about what's going on. And after a year, the Allied forces do come. But listening to him saying that they are on their way, they are doing this, they are doing that, um, that gave them hope. They didn't give up on life. They would have all died and shriveled if they had known that it's coming a year from now. But that daily hope, that power, that trust that yes, help is coming, kept that community alive. And when the Allied forces did come, they found out that Jacob's radio didn't even work. But that is the power of hope. And I suggest you watch this movie. It's very, very intriguing. It teaches us something. It's also a very interesting plot. So let us now come to the material dimensions of trust, which we all know something about. We all know about trust at a material level. Trust is an important aspect of living in this world. Just like the Ten Commandments and all the universal laws of ethical living, which say, live in an ethical way, respect your trust, uphold the trust of others. Even the scriptures say, do not betray your trusts while you know. And we have all heard the saying, your word is your bond. So ethical living depends on how we place our trust and uphold the trust of others that they have placed in us. Now let us take a moment to reflect on betrayal, because this is a subject I've heard so much about from so many people. And when we are betrayed, we get very hurt deep down in our heart. And it's a natural, betrayal is a natural outcome of life. It's an inevitable part of our human experience, because every day we place our trust in people, in things, in events, and then they don't work out and they backfire, or we are betrayed. So it's a great source of hurt and pain. Now, we can debate the subject of trusting people endlessly, the risk, the dangers. We all know what they are. So for now, let us leave that part as being aspects of the human experience. They will happen and they will keep happening. But today, I want to share with you some important observations about trust in my own life's journey. And the first one is that how we place our trust in others teaches us wisdom. And wisdom, unfortunately, comes through very hard lessons. But we never stop pursuing wisdom, because that's what makes us grow. Next, how we uphold the trust of others is also a key aspect that defines each one of us and teaches us wisdom. Now, our material world and its problems can sometimes consume us so much that we fail to respect the trusts of others. We fail to remember our promises, not because we don't want to. Material life consumes us. And finally, before we jump to the conclusion that our trust has been betrayed or that no one can ever be trusted, let us pause to ask some simple but important questions. The first question is, are you sure your trust has been betrayed? Remember, in this world, there are three aspects to every situation or story. There is your side, there's my side, and then there's the truth. Your side says, I've been betrayed. Therefore, the hurtful emotions come and spread and consume you. But what does my side say? What does the truth say? What is the truth? We need to know those two aspects too before we reach the conclusion, the hurtful conclusion that we've been betrayed. So let me share two real-life experiences that have taught me a great deal about trust. The first one is about a lady who works in a bank in Dubai, and we usually bank there, and Karima and her often chat, and one day Karima went to the bank and saw her really down. And so she asked her what was wrong, and this lady shared her story that her husband was, she was from the Philippines, her husband was sitting in jail in Abu Dhabi because on his way out, his employers had not completed the paperwork correctly. Monies were owed, which had not been paid by his employer, and as a result, he was detained, and he was sitting in jail until the money could be found to solve it, or his employer could solve it, but the employer was moving very, very slowly. And so, she was really down about her husband. And she said she went and tried to raise money from friends, family, well wishers to try and get him out. And then he would claim his money back from his employer. But at least once he could get out, because he had a job offer in Saudi Arabia with a very good pay. So, having listened to all this, we decided, okay, we will help her with the deficit because she had a large deficit. And we said, all right, we would loan that to her. And she said, as soon as my husband gets to Saudi Arabia and starts earning, I will pay you back. And we believed her. She's a very trustworthy woman. Unfortunately, when her husband got to the Philippines with all the delays, the Saudi company withdrew the offer. And so he didn't have a job to go back to. And this lady couldn't pay her installments. And she was very embarrassed, but she just couldn't do it. But then we ask ourselves, how could she pay us back with the income she had when her whole family, her husband, her children, everyone was relying on her one income? She couldn't. So she couldn't keep her word. But did she really betray our trust? Or was this just a situation that was well beyond her means? So a year later, when during Eid celebrations, we told her that her loan was forgiven. And just watching the relief on her face, that expression of deep relief and gratitude that came from her soul, said it all. She really did want to pay us back. She was totally honest and very embarrassed for being unable to keep her word. But in truth, she did value our trust, but circumstances did not permit her to fulfill her obligations. So there was no betrayal. The my side of the equation may have said my trust was broken, but the her side says it was not. And the truth was the situation was out of her control. Now, I've had countless situations where people have asked me for help. I've loaned them monies in times of need, and a lot of times they never pay back. Some of those situations have taught me to be more discerning about who and how I trust, and that, my dear friends, is wisdom. However, other situations have taught me to be more understanding about the life of the person I had helped. For some of them, my loan literally solved their problem for today. And tomorrow, they have a whole new set of problems to deal with. So my trust in them was yesterday's solution for them. Today and tomorrow's problems just made them stop focusing on keeping their promise. And then, of course, when people don't keep their promise, the embarrassment sets in, they avoid you, etc., etc. We all know how that works. Was I betrayed? I don't think so. Although you could argue that they could have spoken to me and shared their challenges, but it doesn't happen that way. People feel ashamed. Their pride is hurt. Then they avoid you. So I simply put such experiences down to having done the right thing, from my side at least. And I found much comfort in the wisdom of doing that and doing the right thing. And to tell you the truth, I have constantly found that when you do that, the universe works with you. The river of abundance flows with you. You are never short of anything. So what you give simply flows back to you through this river in some way, shape, or form. If you don't give, the river may not need to replenish you. And your opportunity to serve and help or do the right thing may have been lost. But that's fine too. That's life. You don't have to seize every opportunity, but you have to be aware. Now that I've said all this, let us also recognize that there are a lot of con artists and charlatans out there too, and we cannot be naive about them. And so we have to guard against them. There again, wisdom comes to play. So the bottom line is that we have to be very discerning. Remember the word discerning in inverted commas. It's a very useful word. We have to rely on our wisdom and then finally decide on what feels right or wrong from the heart and the head, and then act. Now, There's one story I've shared with you all before, but I'd like to share it with you again from a different context. And it's a story about this old man who is very charitable. And in his compound, every day, all the homeless and the beggars and people who cannot feed themselves come, and he feeds them every day and looks after them. And in the evenings, at night, when he sits in meditation in the early hours of the morning, he sees his Creator every day. And one day his Creator says to him, I'm really happy with you. So tell me, wish for one thing that you would mean the most to you, and you can have it. And he said, I only have one wish. I would like you to come to my house and dine with me. And the Creator says, is that all you're asking for? He said, oh, this would mean the world for me. Creator said, okay, I will come to your house the day after tomorrow. So the next day, he's busy preparing everything. And then he says to all the homeless people, look, I have a very important visitor coming to my house tomorrow. So I'll give you all your provisions, whatever you need, but please do not disturb me tomorrow. I cannot help anybody. I'm very busy with an important visitor. So everybody respected his word and they didn't bother him. But the next day, this one old man comes and he says, I'm starving. Give me some food. And this guy said, I told everybody yesterday. Tomorrow I have a big guest coming, so please leave me alone today. Tomorrow you come, I'll give you whatever you want. Guy goes away. He comes back in the afternoon again and he says, I'm starving, I need food. And he goes, I told you, I've got a really important visitor. Come back tomorrow. He comes back in the evening again. Now this guy is getting irritated. He said, don't you understand plain language? I'm saying to you, come back tomorrow. The guy goes away. But that day, the Creator doesn't come to his home. There is no dinner. And when he sits in meditation in the morning, he's heartbroken. He says to his Creator, you always would keep your word. You didn't keep your word. I waited for you. He said, I came to your house 3 times and you turned me away. This guy was totally shocked. So remember, he was so advanced spiritually, he could see his Creator in his meditation. But when the old man, the beggar, came before him, he could look at the beggar, but he could not see his Creator there. So you can look, but not see. And when it comes to trusting, we have to try and look and see. So when someone needs help or we have to trust in someone, we look, but then also try to see what is the wisdom behind all this, what is the situation, recognize the need, and then act. So this is very important, and please remember these words, look and see, because most of us can look and not see. So let's develop that skill. And finally, there's one more life experience which is quite profound from my journey that I'd like to share with you because it taught me a big lesson about trust. I grew up, and this is an experience from 1973, 74, around that time. And I was about 16 years old. And we used to live on a farm outside of Mombasa in Kenya. And on our farm, we had a maize mill, a corn mill. And the local farmers would grow their corn, but then they would store it. And that would be their source of food for the year. And then every few days, the women folk would bring the corn to our mill, and we would grind it and make powder, flour for them. And then they would take it home and they would make what you call ugali or millipop or whatever. So it's a corn meal and it's a staple food. So business was working along. I was quite young. My mother was running the farm. And then one day this lady came and she said to the guy running the mill that, I don't have any money. Can you mill for me and I will pay you back? He said, I can't do that. So I was there, so he called me. And the lady said to me, please mill the corn for me because my family needs food and I will pay you back. And something inside of me said, yeah, why not? Go ahead. So we did that. And then a week, 10 days later, she came back again with the same request. And the guy who ran the mill said, you haven't paid the last due. How can you ask him for another loan? They called me. I looked at everything. And again, I thought, poor lady, let me help her. She looks very trustable. She's not going to betray me. Sure, go ahead, do it again. Then she came a third time. And the third time, I still said, okay, extend her more loan, more credit. Maize was ground, everything done. And then she disappeared, vanished, never came back. And I was really hurt. I felt I had been really betrayed because when I looked at that woman in her eyes, I believed her, I trusted her. And then I went to the UK for my education. But that left a big mark on me because it started making me cynical about people. And when cynicism grows in you, cynicism can protect you to some extent, but it can also be devastating to your life's progress if it's not properly governed. So 20 years went by. And then I was visiting my mother in Canada. We were having breakfast and the subject of the farm came up. And I was saying, yeah, and this lady somehow popped into my mind and I said, yeah, these guys, you can't trust them. Look what happened to me. I loaned her and she never showed up. And my mother said, no, she did come. She said, after you left for England, she did come. Apparently what had happened was after that third credit I had given her, one day she was walking home and they had these narrow dirt roads to their home and she was hit by a car. It was a hit and run thing. And she had broken limbs. And for a year she couldn't walk. So when she could walk and when she was able again, she came back. And my mom said, she asked for you. And she paid us back every penny. And I said, oh my God. I felt so ashamed of myself that I was holding her act of betrayal so deeply inside of me. And yet this wonderful woman had fulfilled my trust. So if we go back to the your side, my side, and the truth, the my side had concluded that I was betrayed. The her side was, I had had an accident. I had broken limbs. I could not walk. And the truth was, she did come back and pay her dues. So, how many times do you think that you've been betrayed, but you don't know part 2 and part 3? And a lot of times, I was lucky, my mother told me, but suppose you never know about it. You live the whole of your life thinking you were betrayed, when part 2 and part 3, their side or her side and the truth may be quite different. So I used to be dismissive and cynical, but life has shown me that it's so good and healthy to keep an open mind and still keep discerning first and then trusting. So in conclusion, and a number of times my trust has been broken, I should be the one of those who say I don't trust anyone anymore. But you know what? The more discerning I've become, the less I find my trust being abused. And the universe sends me more people in my life who uphold my trust so that now I believe in trust. So universe works with you. If you said there is absolutely no one to trust, you will keep coming across the crooks. If you say I have an open mind, you will come across the right ones too. So this is my life experience I wanted to share with you. And in conclusion, my dear friends, I'd like us to understand or recognize or consider that we are beings of trust, we are beings of faith, and we are beings of hope. And an important part of our life's journey in this world is to gain wisdom and learn how to respect trust in all its forms. And if we recognize these important aspects, we get hurt less often, and find an inner happiness that truly resonates with our being. So stay happy and blessed always, and celebrate your trust, your faith, your hope, and your wisdom. So this is the experience I wanted to share with you. Stay blessed always.